Hello and welcome. We will have, as part of this hashtag Because Miami experience, over the course of the next hour, you will hear from a Democratic candidate for governor, and you will hear as well from somebody who is the chairperson of the Hampton House about an event that they have going on this weekend involving Muhammad Ali and photography. But we begin, as we often do with Billy, with corruption and malfeasance and foulness and political leadership in the toilet. I don't know where to start, but let's make it sports. Do you want to make it F1 Hard Rock Stadium, or do you want to make it Mel Reese? Your choice.
I mean, it's all sports welfare. So when we could let's start with Mel Reese, because that's right around the corner. So the headline is Internal City Memo Reveals Lawyers' Concerns Over Stadium Lease Deal. So you might remember last month in January, right, shortly after the beginning of the year, Mayor Francis Suarez announced that the city had reached an agreement in principle and was ready to move forward, turning 131 plus acres, the largest piece of parkland and green space, and in fact, the largest parcel of real estate still owned by the taxpayers of the city of Miami. They're ready to turn that over in a sweetheart, no bid, below market value lease to billionaire Jorge Mas and his partner David Beckham to build a soccer stadium and some retail and hotels and a tech hub. Why not? So here's the thing. The city has hired no less than 3 law firms. It's cost taxpayers over $3 million and counting to negotiate this deal. Okay? But the lawyers wrote this memo that the mayor didn't want us to see that basically said, what the hell kind of deal in principle do we have? We have a list in this memo of 28 major duty points that have yet to be hammered out and negotiated. And these are not like immaterial issues. They were absolutely stunned because the developers also, the Bend Over for Beckham team, released hundreds of pages of lease documents that they described as the, quote, final version, end quote, of the deal. So the lawyers negotiating this deal on behalf of the taxpayers, we can argue whether or not they're acting in good faith. That's another story for another time. But they were shocked that the mayor, because who does the mayor represent? The mayor's supposed to represent the people of the city of Miami. He doesn't. He's a lawyer effectively for Jorge Mas. Here are some of the outstanding issues, okay, laid out by these lawyers. The amount the team would pay in a security deposit on the no-bid 99-year lease, the lack of evidence to prove that the development team is financially capable of even building the project before the lease is signed. And the memo also suggests that the team should pay a higher rent that should be adjusted for market conditions in the future using appraisals, a provision that's not in the proposal. Because here's the thing, as we revealed on the show a couple weeks ago, that the rent that they are paying, which is, again, no bid and below market value rent, is the same today as it was in 2018. I repeat, rent in Miami that they negotiated is the same now as they negotiated 4 years ago. We all know that in some parts of Miami, rent is up as high as 50 to 60%. And this billionaire, okay, this billionaire is getting a sweetheart deal and doesn't even have to worry about rent increases. Why? Because his landlords are the taxpayers and nobody is looking out for us.
I want to ask you a couple of questions about that, because there was news this week. Lawmakers are introducing a bill to eliminate subsidies for pro-stadium construction,
yes,
citing in part the stuff that's happening with Daniel Snyder and the toxic workplace. You've been against this for a long time. It is the source. It is the place where you and Greg Cody split forevermore. Because
that sports welfare queen? Yeah.
Yes, because he was somebody who was saying that the Marlins should get every benefit, and you disagree with that vehemently. Let's start with the absurdity.
Well, he was objectively wrong. I think history has proven me 100% correct.
But I want people to hear your viewpoints on the absurdity
of sports welfare,
of stadium financing. Before we get to some of the details in what it is you're talking about with Mel Reese, and I'm alarmed and appalled by how quickly rent has gone up around here to make things so that not just rent, property values. You've been saying for a long time, everything's a real estate hustle down here.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd see the day where Miami was more expensive as a housing market than New York.
Than any city in the
San
country.
Francisco,
Yeah.
like that's crazy.
Number
That's
one.
crazy.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I mean, like, it's scarcity, it's weather, it's all kinds of things. People don't look for good government. They look for sun, and they look for what they perceive as quality of life, which once you get here and see how it works, you realize the quality of life issue is arguably questionable when you have, sewers bursting several times a week, shit literally pouring out into the street, shit pouring into our water. You have a vulnerable freshwater supply. You have a vulnerable saltwater supply, which is only important because we sell beaches, obviously. We sell fun in the sun, and there's always you have a boil water order out of your tap. You have a do not swim order in Miami Beach all the time. I mean, this is not quite the quality of life that they expect. But more importantly, the issue that we as taxpayers of the city of Miami and Miami-Dade County, we turned Jeff Loria, the former owner of the Miami Marlins, we turned him from a multimillionaire into a billionaire. We did that. The backs of one of the poorest cities in the United States of America subsidized this stadium folly. Let me be clear about something. I am pro sports venues. I'm pro sports stadiums. I knew the writing was on the wall for the Orange Bowl. I knew when there was one tenant left who was only using the venue 6 or 7 days out of the year, that it was done, that place had outlived its usefulness. I supported the Miami Heat Arena, which cost only $50 million. You know, that's a bargain but in terms of what sports venues cost. But that brought 2 professional sports franchises to this community that we otherwise would not have gotten without it. It was obsolete the day it was designed and built, but it did its job. We made an investment as a community, and I think we got a good ROI with the Heat and the Panthers there. What I don't like is the deal. I don't like these deals. I was fine with the Marlins having a stadium there, a ballpark there. I'm fine with MLS, with Inter Fort Lauderdale finding a place in Miami for them, but they should find a place. They should hire a fucking realtor like the rest of us have to. They should find property. Okay, the problem is they want public property because they know they can roll over a city attorney, they can roll over a county attorney, they can pay off commissioners, they can pay off mayors. Francis Suarez is bought and paid for. He is corrupt and he is being paid by Jorge Mas, both transparently through public donations to political committees and campaigns and also privately, because Francis Suarez claims as an attorney that has a very prominent real estate practice and a very prominent crypto and blockchain practice. He claims that his client list is privileged, is secret. So we don't know where his conflicts are. I assure you they are. It is a minefield. They are everywhere. And this is what we deal with. I'm fine with the stadiums. We need to negotiate good deals. The problem is a contract is only as good as the negotiation and the willingness of the parties to enforce that contract. And we don't have good faith people on our side of the table. That's the bottom line. And a lot of the stats they give us are bunk. They cover up, in the case of Mel Reese, they're covering up a traffic impact study because it's going to destroy the quality of life of the people in that neighborhood. It is going to destroy the ability of people to get in and out of the airport, which is the lifeblood of this community and economy. It is going not create the opportunity and the revenue that they claim it's going to generate.
They always claim,
and that's bullshit.
But this has been proven over a long time. I think you've got a documentary in you at some point that navigates this minefield of how it is that cities get duped on this stuff.
Here's the thing. There's no, when you open a soccer stadium, everybody in Miami doesn't suddenly have a new source of soccer revenue that they get to then spend on soccer. It's what we call diverted revenue, meaning everybody has an entertainment budget, right? You're going to spend that entertainment budget either going to a restaurant, going to the movies, going to the theater, going to a Dolphins game, whatever you choose to do. Now that there's a soccer option, which I think is great, I think world-class cities should give people options. Not everything is for everybody. There should be something, though, for everybody in a city like Miami, and there is. I'll never go to Ultra. I've never been, but I love that it's here, and I love that people come here and people here enjoy it. This is the thing. People will go to soccer, and maybe they'll spend money there, but that's not new money. That's not new revenue. That's money they're not spending other places, at other businesses. So that's not suddenly this economic boom that they falsely claim that it's going to be. That's just diverted revenue that we're generating in sales tax that we won't be generating from other entertainment options that they might have otherwise enjoyed.
Mel Reese, details that also bother you beyond those, because those are all deal making or deal breaking situations. Each one of those bullet points that you're talking about,
any one of them,
could make a deal and should make a deal fall apart. You can't have a memo that has that much incomplete in it.
It doesn't matter. They have their 4 votes. They need 4 out of 5 votes on the commission. The only reason Francis Suarez is bringing this to a vote on the commission is he knows they've bought the votes. They've bought the votes. That's the bottom line. They've been paid off. They are bought and paid for. Alex Diaz-Laportilla, bought and paid for. Joe Carollo, bought and paid for.
Can you make those?
Ken Russell, bought and paid for. Christine King, bought and paid for. Manolo Reyes is the only guy that's going to stick to his guns and stick up for the community and vote no.
Is that provable, bought and paid for?
Yes, that's provable. You want me to walk you through it? Everybody's been made promises. Okay, Christine King, for example, she was supported by Keon Hardeman, her predecessor. He was her hand-chosen and anointed successor. Keon Hardeman's bag woman, his Aunt Barbara, and his bag man, uncles Roy and Billy, they were lobbyists for MLS. They were literally on the payroll, documented on the payroll of Jorge Mas and Inter Fort Lauderdale. Can I call it? Well, Woody's not here, so I can call it.
Well, the last time we talked about it, there were some fireworks between you, Mike Ryan, and Chris
Speaking
Whittingham.
of people on the payroll, I got to argue. This is the thing. The only people who support this are literally getting paid by Jorge Mas and David Beckham. Case in point, by the way.
So this is coming through, like it's going to go through no matter what because I have heard for so long that Beckham has the deal in place. Is this going to happen?
I think they're going to get the votes they need in the Miami City Commission. I think that doesn't make it a done deal. There's certain conditions precedent. There's certain things that the lawyers representing the city and the taxpayers want to ensure are first in place. Rest assured, the city attorney and the city commissioners are not going to ensure that these things are in place. They don't care. They've already been promised or received what it is that they need to get from this group in order to vote in the affirmative. But the county, and most importantly, the airport, can put a stop to it, because you can't have a bunch of giant stadium lights shining in the eyes of airline pilots, commercial airline pilots, with 200 souls aboard trying to take off and land at the Miami International Airport. And you can't block traffic on game days and essentially effectively stop commerce and tourism from occurring in the county. So the county government is going to have their say in all this, and the airport's going to have their say. So while it may not be a done deal, I believe that Jorge Mas and MLS and Inter Miami have already bought off the 4 commissioners at the city that they need to get this at least moving forward.
F1 coming to Hard Rock Stadium.
So we didn't know about this. Thank God for the Miami Herald, because this all happened in December, and it wasn't reported until this week. So, Miami Gardens, an interesting city, one of the biggest black-run cities. I think one of the first and largest black-run cities in the entire state of Florida. So you have a population that tends to be underserved, that the government doesn't tend to listen to their concerns, and more uniquely in Miami Gardens is it's a factory town, where the billionaire factory owner gets to have his way and do whatever he wants because he's got all the politicians and bureaucrats in his pocket. Who's the billionaire factory owner?
Stephen Ross.
In Miami Gardens, Stephen Ross. He gets whatever he wants. So the people of Miami Gardens came forward and said, we don't want Formula One in our city. We don't want the noise. We don't want the pollution. And you know what the county said? Fuck you. That's what the county said. Okay? And so they went about the process now of building the facilities they need. One of the things they needed was some kind of garage and pit area on site at Hard Rock Stadium, Joe Robbie Stadium. And they went to the county and they said, hey, listen, we want to build this here. And the county said, you can't, because you'd be building it not only on a Tequesta graveyard, but you'll be building over a sewer main, which would block access to necessary repairs that we would need to do, and it would allow noxious gases to seep through the manholes into this building that you're building. So you do not have permission. They built it anyway, or irregardless, as we say in Miami. Okay, county officials are now going. We are stunned that there's now a building here which we did not approve. The city of Miami Gardens did not furnish the permits necessary to build the building. They just did it anyway. Okay. And so what the county could conceivably do and the city could do is say, knock this down. You see this building? Knock it down. You're blocking a main sewer line that could be catastrophic for infrastructure, particularly in the city of Miami Gardens. Knock it down. They didn't. They let Stephen Ross, they fined him, the county, $45,000. I'm going to think proportionally that's a parking ticket for Stephen Ross.
Well, I'm thinking that that's worth whatever it is.
He knew a nuisance fine, a nuisance fund. That was probably built into the budget, I think is what you're getting out of the damn thing anyway.
I would think that however you get that built, get it built. If you have to pay $45,000 for it, just get it built. We're bringing in a lot of money for whatever it is that this is.
Not to mention, no one's inspected it anyway. No one knows if it's up to code. They're building it however they want and as cheaply as they want. So an extra $45,000. I mean, the way most overruns work in new construction, you're right. It's nothing. And the city of Miami Gardens has collected fines for the unpermitted work, but refused to tell the Herald, this public agency, this government, how much. But they did grant a permit for the construction to continue on this illegal construction, effectively to continue. So they legalized this illegal construction. Betty Ferguson, former county commissioner, who's the only person who's ever really represented that community. They currently have a Stephen Ross crony, Oliver Gilbert, the former corrupt mayor of Miami Gardens, who's now the county commissioner. But Betty Ferguson said, Steve Ross just appears to be buying his way through this. If the pockets are deep enough, they seem to get away with ignoring the rules and regulations that are put in place for others. We definitely have double standards operating here. It's upsetting. Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, who's just getting over her second bout of COVID. I'm glad that she's feeling better, Mayor. This is the administration that was supposed to be overseeing and providing accountability on this operation. She said in a statement that her administration is actively monitoring the situation and that county staff is, quote, doing their due diligence, end quote, to ensure the event is, quote, following the proper rules and regulations to protect our community and our environment, end quote. My question is, since when, Madam Mayor? Since when is your administration actively monitoring the situation? Since when are you ensuring that this event follows the proper rules and regulations to protect our community environment? You weren't doing it in December when they did this illegal construction and blocked a main sewer main. Where the hell have you been? Where's your administration been? What is with the incompetence and corruption here? And how can we trust you moving forward to do anything the right way to protect our community or our environment? I wrote that in an email to her communications director, asking, when did they start their due diligence on this? When did they start holding Stephen Ross and the Miami Dolphins and Hard Rock Stadium accountable? I have yet to receive a reply.
You never received those replies. This
Can I invite her?
A lot.
Can I invite
please
her?
Invite her. She'll be on
standing invitation to Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, City of Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, City of Miami Commissioner, any of the commissioners, any of the people we talk about on this show are welcome to come on and join us and speak for themselves.
I'm glad that you said that because Annette Taddeo is with us now, and she is the Democratic candidate for governor. She's a Florida state senator, and you wanted to have her on because this is a pretty important time in Florida, in the United States. The legislation that is threatening to pass there feels hateful, feels ignorant. So give some people some ideas of what it is that you're going to try and tackle with Annette as she gets onto the call here.
Well, State Senator Annette Taddeo represents the 40th district in the state of Florida, which consists of primarily West Kendall, the Richmond Heights area, and Southwest Miami-Dade. And for 60 days out of the year, our representatives and state senators travel to the Capitol in Tallahassee, up in the Panhandle, and do the work of the people of Florida. And for the last 20 plus years, it has been entirely Republican run, making the Democrats, which she is one, a virtual non-entity with little to no power in the state of Florida, running the state. But what we've also seen is a glut of laws passed year after year during the 60-day legislative session in Tallahassee that are unconstitutional, that in fact are later overturned by courts after we as taxpayers spend millions of public dollars defending these wretched laws. And in fact, many of these laws target us, target Floridians. In fact, we are the victims of these laws, both because we pay our government to go up and pass these unconstitutional laws. We then pay lawyers to defend these unconstitutional laws, and these unconstitutional laws victimize us. And this is a uniquely bad year, in no small part because the governor is running for president. He hasn't announced yet. He hasn't formed an exploratory committee. He hasn't started raising money officially for that purpose, but he is running for president. So what we have here is a litany of culture war distractions and corporate giveaways masquerading as lawmaking. And so I want the senator to share with us her top 5, which I think is going to be a tight squeeze, top 5 worst laws in the Florida legislature this year. Top 5 worst laws in the Florida legislature this year.
Hello, Senator. Are you there?
Oh, there she is.
There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Doing okay?
I'm trying to get this. There we go.
There we go. All right, that's good. All right, your camera's on, and we are ready to get started.
Thank you for joining us, Senator. With that as the introduction, Billy, what would you like to tell her right to her face as she comes and helps us with some of our causes?
Well, she knows what I have to say. By way of introduction, I explained that you are a Democrat, so you have little to no power in the Florida legislature because the Republicans have had a stranglehold on the state government for 20 years. But she is, most importantly, one of the good ones, going up there, doing the Lord's work on behalf of a district in Miami-Dade County.
A terrible description, though, to welcome her on and say, and you're powerless. What are you doing?
I mean, you're doing your best, right? But I mean, it's an uphill battle every day, all 60 days of this session, no?
It has been the toughest session of this is my 5th session, if you can believe it. I've actually already been up here 5 years.
You were first elected at 15?
Exactly. I was elected at 15.
You look fabulous.
But definitely it is very difficult, and this has been the most difficult, I would say. It's been very nasty, very personal, with a lot of bills that have nothing whatsoever to do with what's really happening to Floridians, the issues that Floridians need us to talk about. We are talking about terrible things, or we're passing, a new dessert for Florida, because, that's so important. And it's really going to help all those people who can no longer afford to live here because the rents are through the roof.
So let's start first and foremost with that. What are the issues that you wish that you were working on for the people of Florida this session?
Affordable health care. So expanding Medicaid. We have a wait list that is super long when it comes to especially people who are disabled, but we also have about 800,000 to 1 million Floridians who do not have health insurance. And by the way, the rest of us who actually have health insurance are paying for it, because when they go to the hospital, somebody has to cover it. And so we always have to cover it. But those of us who have health insurance, I guarantee you, the hospital's not paying for it, the doctor's not paying for it. The insurance company sure as heck is not paying for it. And I don't know, I call it a sick tax. It's a $2,000 per hospital visit that the rest of us who have health insurance are actually paying, all because our governor doesn't want to expand Medicaid. And by the way, that number doesn't come from some liberal think tank or from Annette Taddeo. It comes from the Florida Chamber of Commerce.
Well, to be fair, some of us who have our own insurance, it's paid for by the taxpayers. And those are the very same people. Those are the very same people who are effectively blocking other people from access to reasonable and affordable health care.
But she was just talking about number 1. We're going to go through all 5 of these.
No. We haven't even gotten to the. Okay, hang on. That was a good one. But hang on. What else should we be? No, we have to get to the top 5 worst bills. But what else should we be working on?
Affordable housing. We have a huge crisis with people really being thrown out of their current place because the rents are going up. There's zero control or in any way being able to say, don't raise it by more than a certain percentage. God forbid that we would do such a thing, but we really have a problem. And those legislators that have been here for 20 years in control, they have been raiding the affordable housing trust for over 20 years.
Right. We could have been better prepared for this. It's gone from a crisis to like existential, like in 2 years, basically, right?
Absolutely. It's really, really bad, but it's worse. Let me tell you why. This is, a lot of people are not aware of this because this has not made like major news, but it has made some news. But there is a bill right now by one of the senators who would actually make it easier for the affordable housing developers to get out, because they're dying to get out because the market is so good. They want to turn those affordable housing units into condos or regular market rentals. And so they put an amendment to a bill that I caught, and I was like, in the committee, I'm like, what is this? No, what does this mean? And no one would answer. And there's a lot of like almost hoping nobody would read these bills. And by the way, one thing I found out once I got here is that a lot of people don't. And so of course I asked a lot of questions, and lo and behold, sure enough, there's some big donor to the governor who really wants this passed so that they can get rid of the affordable housing part of these buildings and turn them into a lot of profit. And it would be up to 40,000 units across the state that would turn just like that into big, high rent condos.
One last thing before we get to your top 5 worst bills of the session.
I'm not done with the top 5 best things that she needs to be doing with our time.
Well, there's no best. They're not doing any of these things. So it's kind of like, it's moot. The issue's kind of moot. But there is something she's doing. And I wanted to ask you about this. You have been on the front line investigating and uncovering a significant amount of fraud, election-related fraud going on, particularly in Miami-Dade, but possibly statewide. We've heard a lot about stopping the steal. We've heard a lot about election fraud. Florida had what the governor himself argued was one of the most successful and safest and secure elections in history in 2020. But every once in a while, there's a big fraud story, and all of them seem to be about Republicans in some way. But what have you uncovered recently?
Well, that's the issue. Absolutely. I am the vice chair of ethics and elections. And in December, Glenna Milberg put out this report about this one lady. And a bunch of people saw that report about this one lady who said, I don't know, I didn't know that I signed that form and that they were switching me from lifelong Democrat to a Republican. From that report, my office has been bombarded with phone calls from elderly Hispanics who have said the same thing happened to me. And I have been a lifelong Democrat and I got my card and it says Republican. So that's when I started digging. And I asked the Secretary of State, I wrote a letter in December and I said, please, we got to look into this. No response to this day. And then it just continued to happen. So we have been turning all this information over to the state attorney, not just in Miami-Dade, because now it has expanded to the Central Florida area. So State Attorney Warren is also looking at it in Hillsborough. And I'm telling you, I'm now finding cases in Orange County. So this seems to be a concerted effort. And I am really trying to get all the people to please be aware, look at your card if you've recently signed something, but it's a whole program to get people to not realize that they signed. They tell them that they are just updating their voter registration. They're elderly. Many of them don't speak English or their English is limited. And lo and behold, they switch their party. And I believe that it was a concerted effort to get the national media to say, wow, look at this headline. The Republicans, for the first time in history in Florida, have surpassed the Democrats. Right. And lo and behold, that's the headline they got. And a lot of donors who usually come in said, we're walking away. We might as well not really participate in Florida elections. And I think that's what they wanted. Right. And for people that claim that this guy's going to be automatically reelected and he's just a shoo-in, they sure are going out of their way to do stuff. But like you said, I have accomplished some things. So since I sit on ethics and elections, I saw the police bill, the DeSantis elections police bill. And we actually saw it less than 24 hours before we heard it in committee. It came out and it's 45 pages and I had very little time to prepare, but I put in a bunch of amendments and I brought up all the wrong issues. For example, one of them was they want to make it harder for people to vote by mail. Why? I think it's because Democrats surpass the Republicans. For the first time, every election, we're now surpassing them in vote by mail. So now they want to make it harder. They want an additional envelope. They wanted you to give your last four of your social security number. Think about, you have your signature in the mail with the last four of the social security number. So I put in an amendment and I was like, they're going to steal people's identity. People are not going to submit these things. People are going to be scared. I would be scared. And so now that has been taken out of the bill. I was successful in getting that done. And also because of this that I was talking about, the fraud and changing people. Now my amendment, which was we should hold those people accountable. I realize there's investigations and there's fraud and there could be fraud cases, but we also need to hold accountable the organizations that are funding these people who are knocking on the doors, because we go after the person who got paid $10 an hour. And I want to go after the organization that's behind it. And so my amendment would actually do that and hold them responsible at $1,000 per person that they mess with no cap. So as many as they mess with, we are going to definitely go after them. So it's going to be a little scarier for people to play these games, hopefully.
Senator, we have to do a lightning round. I hope you have the sound effects ready.
Ready.
And these are some pretty serious issues. I don't mean to make light of them, but there's so many bad things happening. So can we do just very quickly your top 5 worst bills of this Florida legislative session?
Don't Say Gay at number 1, no question, is a terrible bill. It's not something we should be doing. The Stop Woke Act is awful, awful, awful. And it's not just for schools, it's also for corporations.
Like private businesses, right? We can't have these conversations about real American history. Yeah.
They can't train people not to discriminate or not to sexually harass. Somebody's going to feel really uncomfortable.
These are small government anti-regulation conservatives doing right? One who want to control private business. Okay, what else?
The 15-week ban on a woman's right to choose, which has no exceptions for rape or incest. Like how awful can you get?
And look,
defunding public schools. They want to take away $200 million from our public schools to punish our kids because of the fact that they dared try to keep them safe with a mask when we were in the tip of.
Oh, no.
Did we lose her?
We lose her?
It's too bad that we lost her. You know what? Before we get to number 5, I think it's better that we've lost her just because of how offensive it is to have her doing what she was talking about combined with ta-da fanfare. I loved all of that. I also think that that's exactly how that segment should end, with her just disappearing. And it's so many bad laws, Billy.
I want to know what her 5th was.
I want to know what her 5th was too, but I do not want to do again where she says some horrible thing and then Roy plays the ta-da.
Well, this is what our government is doing, and if we don't ta-da, we're just going to sit around sobbing and crying about it.
You have opinions on this. We will get her back in a moment, but each of those laws is worse than the last, and I don't know. And this, what's going to happen? Is all of this just going to sail through?
I mean, yeah, because almost all of it is passing on party lines. And as I said, for over 20 years, the Republicans have had a stranglehold on this state. And it's not about helping people. It's not about helping children. It's not about saving lives. It is about controlling women's bodies. It's about delegitimizing the rights and even existence of LGBTQ Floridians. It is about diminishing and demeaning African Americans and their ability to vote and participate in their government and to acknowledge the very real racist history of the country. This is not about policy or ideology or passing laws to help people. This is about culture wars, and this is about actually maximizing harm to as many Floridians as possible. That includes tax cuts for multi-billion-dollar corporations while increasing taxes and fees on the rest of us.
She is back, number 5, the 5th worst of all these dumb-ass, awful laws that are headed through our government without impediment.
Thank you. The anti-sanctuary bill. As you guys know, we do not have sanctuary cities. They already passed the law to ban them, but I guess they didn't do enough. So now they want to make sure that the Archdiocese of Miami and all these other places that keep undocumented kids who are alone.
Like Pedro Pan.
Like Pedro Pan.
Like Pedro Pan. But the church has already come out and said that this is ungodly, that this is inhumane, that this is right.
Absolutely. And now the governor is criticizing, or his Christina Pushaw is criticizing the Archbishop. It's unbelievable. I look, in all seriousness, I came here when I was 17 by myself. I moved to Alabama, of all places.
Wow.
So I know what it's like to leave your parents behind, to leave everyone behind, live with a family all of a sudden that's not your family, learn a new language. So although I'm not Pedro Pan, I know what that is like. And I know that usually when you go through these situations, you actually work even harder and tend to be much more successful. And we have seen it with the Pedro Pans. They're like the wonderful people in our community who have built all these great businesses and big jobs. And here we are. We're really saying that these kids somehow are not the same. And many of them are coming from same situations, Venezuela, Nicaragua. Are you saying that that's not socialist or communist?
They're fleeing tyranny. They're fleeing violence. It's why Pedro Pan was called freedom flights. And you're right. A lot of those immigrants, they tend to embrace democracy and embrace capitalism and embrace the opportunities and freedoms of this country because they don't take that for granted. So what would the net effect of that bill be then?
Well, he's already doing it. He's not renewing a lot of these licenses, but now it actually becomes law. They also say that they're going to get all those horrible people or companies who are transferring these kids or these people, but we can't find any of them because there's no such thing. Right. So it's all made up.
It's a solution in search of a problem.
Absolutely. But I will tell you, we do have workers who come here who do the jobs that many people don't want to do, which is picking the fields. And by the way, I talked about the dessert is now the strawberry shortcake. And guess who picks the strawberries? It is really just unbelievable to me that they want to do these kinds of things.
Senator, thank you for being on with us. I am sorry that at inopportune moments we played fanfare as you talked about horrible things, but it was comedically amusing from my end. If you can get past all of the awful.
Senator, I say if we didn't laugh, we would just be crying all the time in this state.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for having me, guys. Look forward to having you back or coming back.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Roy, you lost it laughing there.
Roy. I hurt myself.
Are you okay?
My muscles are hurting.
Are you okay?
Because the couple of the fanfares there when he hit them.
Yeah. Well, I like that you appeared to be waiting for a more opportune moment and it just never came. So you're kind of like, well, screw it. I might as well just do it here then. It's not going to be any more appropriate when I do it.
You guys want to do Sidney Poitier or not?
You should leave all that in. Leave it all in.
It's fabulous.
And you could just splice it together. We could do Sidney Poitier, but we don't need to. Do I need to throw it?
I could do it, and then you can make it. It's kind of its own thing.
Sidney Poitier is going to be after Jacqui. So because you tossed, and on the opening segment, you tossed to the senator. So that little portion is going to end
Oh, yeah.
with the senator, and then we're going to start back up with Jacqui.
But should I introduce Jacqui or okay? So Jacqui will be. Well, there'll be. What I could do here is I could just ask Billy about Sidney Poitier and then head into Jacqui.
Okay, we can do that.
So I'm gonna pretend like I'm coming out of the senator or out of that laughter. Really, right? Like that's where that should end.
That's going to go into our ad break. So we'll
Okay.
pop up with the second segment.
Okay.
You can
All right.
talk
That's
about
fine.
Sidney.
Okay. All right. Jacqui Colyer is going to be with us in a moment to tell us about a Muhammad Ali event going on this weekend at Hampton House. But before she does that, Billy, and before we leave Black History Month, Sidney Poitier, am I pronouncing that correctly? I've put an R. I put another R in there over the entirety of my life. I call him Poitier. It's my father's favorite actor, but I don't think I'm pronouncing his name right.
Poitier, I think.
Sidney Poitier passed away, and I know that.
Poitier.
Well, we should probably know that as one of America's richest thespians. We should probably know how to pronounce his name.
I think Sidney Poitier is sufficient, but it's not It's like Poitier. Poitier, right? Yeah, Sidney Poitier.
Sidney Poitier and his Miami ties.
Yeah, well, in honor, as you said, of Black History Month, also of his passing last month, and in fact, what would have been Sidney Poitier's 95th birthday this past Sunday. Of course, To Sir with Love, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, In the Heat of the Night, A Raisin in the Sun, a 90s favorite of mine, Sneakers. I don't know if you remember the movie Sneakers with Robert Redford and Dan Aykroyd and Ben Kingsley. It's a great movie. In 1963, he was the first black actor and first Bahamian to win the Academy Award for Best Actor for Lilies of the Field, and he became a well-respected and vocal civil rights activist in that era. And what many people don't know is that he was an accidental Miami native. On February 20th, 1927, his parents had a farm in the Bahamas, and they came over to Miami. Sidney's mother was about 6 or 7 months pregnant with him. And they came here to sell their produce at markets and places around Miami. And she gave birth prematurely, about 2-3 months early. And Sidney Poitier became a dual citizen of the United States and the Bahamas, and in fact, a native Miamian. They stuck around for a little while for him to get his strength. He was premature, and they returned to the Bahamas. And then about 15 years later, in 1942, he returned to Miami to live in the United States with his brother. And he started doing odd jobs and menial jobs around Miami, and one of which he was doing deliveries. He was delivering packages. And one day, he went to an affluent neighborhood, to a very nice house, to deliver a package. What he didn't know as a Bahamian, not an American, is that in the 1940s in the Jim Crow South, black delivery men go to the back door and leave the package quietly and without being seen. Sidney went right up to the front door, knocked and announced himself, "I'm here to make a delivery." That infuriated the people at the house, who chased him off and went one step further and reported this capital offense, this infraction, to the local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. And word got to Sidney's brother that the KKK was looking for him to punish him with a death sentence, no less, for knocking on the front door of rich white people to deliver a package to them. And Sidney's brother put him on a bus for New York City. And that was really the beginning of the rest of his life as a thespian, as an actor, as, again, the first black actor and Bahamian to win the Academy Award for Best Actor, and, of course, a civil rights legend. And rest in power, Sidney Poitier.
Chased off by a racist Miami.
Yeah, because Miami.
Jacqui Colyer is here, chairperson, Historic Hampton House, Miami. Has a lot of links to Muhammad Ali. Edwin Pope of the Miami Herald used to tell the stories all the time of being in Miami Beach with Muhammad Ali. And she is our guest now, Billy, because we wanted to talk to her about an event that's coming up here. Do you want to tell the people why it is that Jacqui is with us?
Well, this is an inaugural event, right? This is going to hopefully become an annual thing. And it is a weekend of exciting events to celebrate Ali Liston 1, which took place in Miami Beach in February of 1964.
Yep.
I remember correctly. And actually, interestingly, we call it Ali Liston, but he was not Muhammad Ali yet. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the Historic Hampton House is a hotel that played a very significant role in this, as made famous now in Regina King's Amazon feature film One Night in Miami, now streaming, which is based on a brilliant play by Kemp Powers, which I saw here, an incredible production here at Miami New Drama at the Colony Theater years ago, about what happened that night after the fight. It's a fictionalized version, but Jacqui, if you could tell us a little bit about how the Hampton House fits into this history, this Miami history and this sports history.
Thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me to be on the show. I am just so excited. I'm a big fan, so thank you. I get to meet two of my favorite people, so this is a good day for me. Besides it being a beautiful day in Miami, it's a good day to be on the show.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. But Miami,
he's a Stugotz fan.
Miami and Muhammad Ali. I've just been hearing about it for what is it now? 60 years. I've been hearing about this.
Yeah. It's about 60. But listen, Muhammad Ali, or Cassius Clay at the time, ended up back at the Historic Hampton House, because after his win over Sonny Liston at the Miami Beach Convention Center, there were no plans for a victory celebration for him, because nobody thought he would win. So the Fountain Blue tried very quickly to put something together, but Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown, they were all in town. Jim Brown was doing color commentary. Sam Cooke was here just because he was Sam Cooke, and he was a good friend. And Malcolm X was at that time really coaching and talking with Ali Clay on a regular basis, on a daily basis. So he said, let's go back to the Hampton House where Ali was living at the time, or staying at the time before the fight, because he was just he had to stay there. You got to remember, the history of Miami at that time was that it's a green, that it was a segregated city, and blacks could perform on the beach, but they could not stay on the beach. They could not get accommodations on Miami Beach. So as a result, he was staying at the Hampton House before the fight. And in fact, he did a lot of his training, between the Fifth Street Gym and coming back to the Hampton House. So he came back and forth, but Malcolm X convinced all of them that they should have the party, quote, party, at the Historic Hampton House. But there was not a real party. It was Malcolm X and Cassius Clay and Sam Cooke and Jim Brown all talking to each other in that fictionalized version that you see on One Night in Miami, and that's why he ended up back at the Hampton House.
But you're throwing the party this weekend. It's the greatest weekend, a celebration and extravaganza. It's highlighting Cassius Clay's Miami years. The opening reception is tonight, music, films, discussion. Saturday, rounds 1 through 5, with what is Bob Gomel doing? He is the Life magazine photojournalist that Billy disrespects because he doesn't believe photographers have any real skill.
No. Back then, photography was a skill. Now, digital photography, not a skill. Just point and shoot, and it's just out then, and then you just go through there. It's a game of numbers. Eventually, you find a picture. Back then, photography was an art.
And Bob Gomel will talk about that. In fact, what's going to be interesting is the conversation between Bob Gomel and Ramiro Ortiz, who is this boxing historian who loves to talk about this fight, and he's a big Cassius Clay fan, Muhammad Ali fan. So the two of them you're going to hear in round 5.
Jacqui, for just a moment, I want to talk about Overtown, because Overtown was Miami's Harlem, and as you said, because we were the Jim Crow South, and because Miami Beach was a sundown town, effectively, where black people were not allowed to stay overnight. Muhammad Ali was the world heavyweight champion. He became that in Miami Beach. He was crowned and not allowed to stay overnight in a hotel here. But talk about what a vibrant arts community and nightlife, because Overtown was the after party, was everybody's after party. You had the most extraordinary talent and entertainers in the history of the world, who all congregated there after their big shows in Miami Beach or wherever at the nightclubs. Tell us about how extraordinary, rich, and vibrant Overtown was.
Now I want you to know the historic Hampton House is in Brownsville.
Yes.
Overtown is, Cassius Clay stayed at the Mary Elizabeth, which was in Overtown, for about a week or two, but he really wasn't comfortable there, didn't like it. So he ended up coming to, in essence, they bought a house. His family moved to Miami. So he lived in Alapata, right on 15th Court off of 46th Street, and you'll hear that in round one. So, but he came back to Brownsville, which is where the Hampton House is, because at that time, Brownsville was a vibrant, segregated, basically, black suburb. And when he came into the Hampton House, he came into this luxurious hotel in Miami because it was one of the few black luxury hotels in Miami. The Markowitz family is absolutely great family. Spent almost $2 million on the renovation of the historic Hampton House because they wanted to provide, the upscale kind of hotel life in Miami for entertainers, because the Hampton House has had some of the most famous artists right here. Aretha Franklin, Sammy Davis Jr. Interestingly enough, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, and Frank Sinatra all stayed at the Hampton House. Frank Sinatra stayed in protest because he thought that it was wrong for segregation, not to allow blacks to stay on the beach. So he actually stayed at the Hampton House for several nights. He, Dean Martin, and that whole Rat Pack. Who else was in that? Joey Bishop. That gang.
He was famous. Frank was famously pissed that Sammy Davis Jr. could perform at the Fontainebleau Hotel, or the Deauville Hotel, but couldn't stay there, and said, "Screw this! I'm going over the bridge to Alapata, to Brownsville, to Liberty City, to Overtown." The famous photo of Muhammad Ali boxing underwater at the pool was at the Sir John Hotel. I believe that's Overtown. I believe I'm getting.
Yeah, Sir John is Overtown. Yeah. Correct.
So sorry, Jacqui, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that he would go over to the Sir John because the Sir John at that time had the deeper pool. Now, I want you to know, Cassius Clay could not swim, but he thought it was a good idea, and it was a great promotion, task because it worked well. It's one of those classic photos that we have.
What other photos are going to be there? Because you're talking about two of the most famous sports photographs of all time. Like, what else are people in store for? And can you give us some information? There's still openings, right? People can go this weekend.
Oh, yes. It's a free event. We invite everyone to come. We have lots of space, lots of parking, and lots of activities going on. And so the discussions will be in the main room of what was back in the day, the supper club. And we will have actual activities and live music in the courtyard by our fountain pool. And in the back of the west of the building will be our food court and vendors. And it's going to be, like I said, a 3-ring fight. So we're going to have things going on all over the site. But the thing that I think is really important, and I do want you to know, is that there are 7 photos that we really want to own at the Hampton House. And they are 7 photos by Bob Gamel. Some of them have never been seen before, but they were all shot at the Hampton House because Bob Gamel, I'm sure you all know this, Bob Gamel was the only white person in the crowd at the time, and he was taking photos of the event. And thus you see the iconic photo that is on all of our ads about advertising this this event. And it's, Cassius Clay standing at the counter, just, holding court like he always did at the Historic Hampton House Cafe. So yes, we have 7 photos. We have a GoFundMe page to try and purchase those photos. And if you've ever seen Bob Gamel's work in person, I mean, it's absolutely astounding. And like you say, back in the day, photojournalism was truly photojournalism. So yes.
And famously, in some of those pictures, Bob Gamel is taking a picture of Malcolm X taking a picture of
Correct.
Muhammad Ali at the counter there. It's extraordinary. And particularly because you'd mentioned how influential Malcolm X was in his life at that time, effectively recruiting him, because it was, I believe, within a day of the fight that he announced that he was joining, that Cassius Clay at the time was joining the Nation of Islam. It was shortly thereafter he changed his name to Cassius X, and it was less than a month later that he would change his name once and for all and officially to Muhammad Ali. And in February of 1964, this was an extraordinary time in Miami history, and there's more famous photos from this era. The Beatles were in town to perform on the Ed Sullivan Show at the historic Deauville Hotel, which of course we're now tearing down because Miami. And the Beatles went to visit Muhammad Ali at the 5th Street Gym here in Miami Beach, where he was training, to take a series of very famous pictures of him knocking out the Beatles. And that also happened here in Miami at the time.
All 4 Beatles with one punch. The good part is if you come on Saturday, you're going to hear the story behind that, because Susie Dundee, who is Chris Dundee's daughter, is going to tell how we ended up with that photo, because they didn't know what to do. But I'm not going to tell the story, because I want you to come and I want you to hear Susie Dundee tell that wonderful story about how she got her dad to send, because Chris Dundee was the promoter for the fight, and so how she got her dad to send the Beatles over to the 5th Street Gym. And it's such a remarkable story. I'll wait and I'll let her tell it.
Good tease, Jacqui. Good tease.
The greatest weekend of celebration and extravaganza. It's all weekend at the Hampton House. Thank you, Jacqui. Appreciate it. It's free. She just told you it's free in their food trucks. That sounds like that should be enough for all of you in the audience.
Sounds like a plan, right?
See you later.